is a bad idea to fly this camouflaged airplane in the evening.
This prompted a lot of foul language and the start of a rebuild. Hey, you mad modelers. This is Grant at Grant's shop. This is my Aviation design F16 that went off-roading through a plowed field, and it did not do very well. So, I don't like the retracts that this had in it. I am converting this one 6.8 scale to JP Hobby's scale F16 retracts, and they look like they're gonna fit in there just nice. But I got some major surgery to do, so stay tuned and I'll show you what I'm doing. First of all, I have to get the frame out of there. So yeah, let's just peel this thing open like a big tuna can, and we'll rip out this frame here. There's the frame. Oh yeah, hey, cool. Now this has got to take the place of that right there. So I'm wondering, do I want to cut into this and make room for that aluminum backbone, or do I want to get rid of the aluminum backbone, unscrew it, and mount the landing gear directly to that laminated carbon fiber piece? Decisions. I could maybe even take this out completely, and since it's laminated wood, I've got some carbon fiber plate I could easily cut out and replace this, and I think I might make a better one. These are going though. They are not staying in this aircraft. Another problem is, and the reason why I ripped this frame out, is the wings. Yeah, the wings plug into here with a thick piece of aluminum, and there's a set screw that's supposed to hold them in place. I'm not really thrilled with that. I think I'm going to add another mount up here, put 2 spars in the wings, and then I'm going to add something up forward, like right in this area, a tab or something on the wing that will slot into here, and then I can put a pin here. This will give it more leverage to keep the wings on, because confidentially, there was a few times I brought this airplane down and there was a gap between the wing and the fuselage up front, and I didn't like that. It really did make me nervous. So hang around and I will show you what I'm going to do to rebuild this puppy. It's going to get totally rebuilt. It's going to get a new paint job. I'm sticking with the Nellis Air Force Base's Aggressor Squadron, but I'm going to go with a different paint scheme, kind of the blue-gray look. I've already got the decals for it, so there's just going to be a lot of messy fiberglass work to do on it. While I've got it out, I want to show you guys the only thing that holds this wing to the aircraft is this piece of 1/8 inch aluminum and a set screw. And you can see that this has worked its way out. The set screw is about gone. The boss that was holding it in, the brass piece that was in there, wasn't even glued in. So there was a couple times when this little locating pin on the front, when I landed, it had about that much left to go before it let go and left the airplane. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So we're going to put a second spar in it. This is going to go up here inside the wing, and since this frame has some more frame to it, like this, can you kind of see what I'm going to do? I'm going to make this one socket in like that, so I have 2 locations for a set screw for double the securing, and I'm going to fill it in, and I will plate it with, I've got some carbon fiber plate here. We're going to sandwich that thing in there, and it's not going to come out. And when I'm done, I'm going to put some 1032 brass screws in there, and they will be epoxied in. They're not going to be just screwed in the way this thing came from the manufacturer. Aviation Design was the manufacturer, and you cannot get parts for this aircraft anymore. They don't make it. It's out of France. So I'm having a bit of a problem trying to get her back in the air, but I'll tell you, it flies so nice. That's the only reason why I'm putting in all this effort, extra energy and effort. So I cut off the lead edge of this wing right where the leading edge flap would be. I don't know. I might make this operational. I might not. I'd like to get it in the air. I could always pull the wing off and modify it over the winter. But anyway, this is going to sit in here like this. That's why it's bent at that angle, because I'm going to run another carbon fiber plate spar down this wing, because guess what? There's nothing in here. There's no wing ribs, no nothing, and I just really don't feel comfortable with that. I at least want a main spar to run all the way down it. So anyway, that's my train of thought, and that's what I'm going to do for now. So this is 1/8 inch T6 aluminum, 3/4 inch wide. So by the time I get that in there with that other 3/4 inch piece, if this thing could withstand 10 G's now, it'll withstand 40 G's when I'm done. All right, I've milled out a hollow spot on it just to get some weight off of there, because this carbon fiber spar is going to get epoxied onto that like that, and I will be using 3M 38315 panel bonding adhesive. I've used this before. I'll tell you what, if it's not in the right spot, you might as well just throw it away and make your parts over again, because you're not getting them apart. Okay, so how do you repair something like this? Well, any place that's been torn off or beat up, like right here, I just super glued this little part on here. If you can find places where it will line up properly, then go ahead and put a little bit of super glue on it. Then on the back side, you're going to put some fiberglass cloth in here as a reinforcement and some epoxy resin. Hey, see? That piece is back in place. It's held in there. I still have to reinforce it on the back side. I may put in some carbon fiber to strengthen it, but that's the basic idea. It's kind of like when you were kids and you and your brother got playing around and you broke your mom's lamp. So you hurry and got out the super glue and you put it back together before she got home. Not that I did that, but yeah, this is how you put them back together. Okay, that's the new JP Hobby 16.8 scale nose gear retract, and it looks like it's going to fit in here really nice. I'm going to have to, of course, make some custom mounts for it, but just by holding it in place, it looks like it's going to be a near perfect fit. And if I lay it back, I can't lay it back. I'm going to have to retract that. Anyway, you can see front to rear, there's plenty of space left. Well, if it quit sliding around, which I don't have the mounts built for it yet, but this is going to work out just nice. It's a little snug right over in here. So I think that's what I'm going to do I'm going to sand out a little bit of this intake duct and give it a little bit more room, but other than that, I think this is going to work out great. As you can see, at this point, I have cut the entire top off of this F16 because I needed to gain access into these areas to get this new landing gear mounted. Here's the main gear. I've also had to cut out the center brace to get things in and out. I'll attach it to this so that it will be there, but it will no longer be a part of the airframe itself. The main gear sits in there like that. This is a 1/6.8 scale JP Hobbies landing gear for the F16. I've had to widen it out a little bit here and a little bit here. So it's no longer scale, it's going to have slightly bigger landing gear doors. I have built another bulkhead right here that will go in here with a block to mount the front part of it. That way it distributes the stress. When the landing gear hits it, it's going to move this way, and it will distribute the stress along the fuselage, the fiberglass fuselage itself. The intake, there's really not a lot of places to mount this landing gear. This is upside down, of course. The intake I have reinforced in this area with 2 layers of fiberglass mat. That's this stuff. It's really rigid when it sets up, and I wanted it rigid right through here and a little bit through here. The rest of it was 6-ounce glass cloth that you can see there. Now, these blind nuts that are in there, you're like, uh-oh, you got epoxy down in there. No, I didn't. I filled the blind nuts with modeling clay. So all I have to do now is get a Dremel and Dremel off the top and pull the clay out. It's no problem. Another way to do it would have been to put a screw in there with a bunch of grease on it. And then, of course, you back the screw out, the grease keeps the epoxy resin from sticking. You can see this landing gear has to have that room inside, one for the steering servo and one for the retract mechanism. So I put extra bulkheads here. The one in front, it came with the one in front, but I've replaced it. This way, any torsional like this, we'll place it along here, and this will also get fiberglass to the inside of the fuselage. Now I will be cutting it off about here because I want this part from here forward permanently mounted in here. But when this is inside the aircraft, oh, I'm gonna have to get that out of there first. When this is inside the aircraft, you're gonna see that there is not a lot of room. It's not gonna go all the way in because I need to sand it. Anyway, fuel tanks sit right here. I want to be able to access the fuel tanks. So if I cut it off here, by the time this is slid all the way forward, I'll be able to remove this section and get to the fuel tanks. The fuel tanks were epoxied in from the factory. I really don't like that idea. Had 2 fuel tanks here and 2 smoke tanks here. And man, every time I look, I got little cracks all over in this thing. Anyway, to proceed on this, I'm also going to be making more bulkheads that fit here. There was a small bulkhead that went in here that really didn't do much other than kind of stiffen it up and separate the 2 tanks. I have created, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here's one. This is another wing spar because the wings that were only attached with 1 spar, and it had a set screw down in a brass fitting right here. So you plug them in, you put the set screw in. Well, there was a couple times, like I'd said before, that I had a gap here on the leading edge. That's no bueno. If it goes out too far, it misses the locating pin, and then this wing's going to do this number, and off it goes. Not a good idea. So I plan on opening up this wing. I've opened up the other one and they are hollow inside. There's no ribs or anything in there. And this extends into about here. That's it. So this is going to be placed up forward, and it's going to be placed right where that other bulkhead is. And that other bulkhead will be just like this one. It will now be a structural member, and I will have 2 set screws in there, just for redundancy. You guys may have noticed too, along with me, a little bit of a dark spot in here. I didn't see that until I opened the fuselage. I think somebody's had a fire in here at one time. I think I'm about the 3rd or 4th owner of this aircraft. Okay, I've done some sanding on this part. Now, I took the end of this little grinder and I went across the top. Well, that was not done yet. Went across the top of my blind nut because they were sticking up a little proud of that surface. So I don't want my landing gear resting on the tops of those blind nuts. I want it to fit firm on the plate. So by grinding the top down, I was able to expose the blind nut, and what do you know? There's the clay. So now I can sit here and for the next 2 hours and pick the clay out of the little hole. One more thing to note too is that plate is only 1/4 of an inch thick because that's all I could get in there. If I did any more, it would show through on the intake. So in trying to keep the screws from passing through to the intake, I have pre-built this and I've cut all the screws off with a Dremel cutoff wheel so that I know that they're not going to go past the bottom of this plate. Another thing too about this plate, since I did put the reinforcement strips here and here, when it torques this way, it's actually transferring the load out here to these points. So I would suspect if I have a hard landing or a bad takeoff like I had at the beginning of this video, that it's probably going to rip the landing gear right off of the airplane, and this will probably stay intact. That's fine. I'll buy parts. I hate rebuilding. And this is like major surgery. I'm also going to need to drill some holes in here to pass some wires through, because I've got the servo for the nose wheel steering to go through, and I've got the wire for the retract to go through, but I'm also going to put a light kit on it. And those lights sit about here. So I'm going to need to run lights all the way up to this top surface where it'll come out. And see, my receiver will sit about here. So it'll all work out. You'll see. Okay, so Grant just did a major faux pas here. This was too far over, about a good 1/4 of an inch. So I've cut it out, I've moved it over, and I'm going to fiberglass it back in. There's some areas that are down in here though that might be hard to get to. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some of that fiberglass mat and I'm pulling it apart, and I'm going to put it in an epoxy cup and mix it up with the epoxy along with some small milled glass fibers. This will give the epoxy a lot of strength, and then I can push it down in here. After that cures, then I can go ahead and put some regular strips in here like so. If you have a spot that you want reinforced and really stiff, but you cannot get this weave or this mat to go down, you can actually pull this stuff apart in half, and you can put it in small sections, and that will go around your compound curves easier, and then you can put on your different layers. You know, I call myself a master modeler because we all learn from our mistakes. Well, trust me, I've made so many mistakes, I am now a master. At this point, I've got a plate in here for my receiver and landing gear controls. The intake duct has now been fiberglassed in. That is now a permanent part of the airframe because the landing gear mounts are in here. I need to paint all this white. I need to do some filling and some sanding. This thing took a little bit of a beating, but it is coming along quite nicely. I've got some flame resistant shrouds and some phenolic tubing on the inside of that to prevent heat for my elevator servos or elevon servos. The rudder servo will also be run through one after I get this top portion on here that comes up to about here. So that's where I'm sitting right now. I need to add a socket right here for the wing. When it plugs in, it'll connect for the wingtip lights. Okay, I just got done test running an engine that I bought used with 1 hour and 13 minutes of runtime on it. Got it for a great price. This is a JetCat P180. It runs smooth as silk. I am happier than a dog in a room with a butt-scented candle and an inflatable leg. Okay, here's the system. It's outside of the airplane right now because I need to tidy things up. This is the old board that came out. Two of these are going to be gone. This door sequencer is going to be gone. This air switch is going to be gone because this was for the air-operated landing gear. The air brakes are gone because the landing gear and the brakes are now electric. So we go gear down. We got it there. The door opens. Nose wheel comes out and locks. Go back up. We go up. See, the light changes. Leg folds up. And the door shuts with authority. And that's really a pretty nice fit. Right. I now have the main gear doors installed. They're not perfect. I need to finesse them a little bit. But they are installed. The air cylinders are installed. Everything. So let's give her a test. Gear up. Looks like I need to manage those hoses too. And slammo! There goes the doors. All right. And gear down. Doors open. Wheels coming out. All right. Slickered and owl snot on a doorknob. All right. I now have the main gear doors installed. They're not perfect. I need to finesse them a little bit. But they are installed. The air cylinders are installed. Everything. So let's give her a test. Gear up. Looks like I need to manage those hoses too. And slammo! There goes the doors. All right. And gear down. Doors open. Wheels coming out. All right. Slickered and owl snot on a doorknob. All right. The left wing on my F16 took a hit, a big hit. The leading edge, this bottom piece, was pretty well busted up. Problem with this wing though is the entire thing is hollow, except for where this spar is, it stops here. But I've added another spar with a piece of carbon fiber that runs all the way down here. Because I didn't like this, so I put some glass cloth on the inside, on the back side, because this wing is built with fiberglass cloth. Looks like about 2 ounce on the back side, and then it's glassed again on the outside, which means that this wing is a stressed skin design. Well, how do you fix that? Well, you got to recreate what they've done. And what I did is I created this piece here. This has got glass cloth on the back side with a lip hanging over. The idea is to slip this up underneath like so with the epoxy on it, and with this insulation, this foam that's going to expand, it'll keep it tight up against the back side, and it will adhere to that. Now when I'm done, I'm not going to glue this area, the outside edge, down, so I'll be able to lift it up and pull all this stuff out, then glue it down, and then overlap some glass cloth here and redo the whole thing. And I cut it right where the scale line would be for the leading edge flap. Now, how do you laminate that fiberglass onto that wood? Well, now it's on the floor. Way to go, Hans. You're gonna do what you want, not what I want you to do, huh? Yeah, out on strike again. Okay, what I do is I start with a sheet of glass or a mirror or something that's really flat. You lay a piece of wax paper down on it. You put your glass cloth down on it. And any of this stuff here where it's gonna bubble, I went over it with a sealing iron or just a monocoat type iron. This guy, and it flattens it right out. Then you pour your resin on there, and then to spread it out, I'm using one of these little detail rollers that you get at the hardware store for house paint. This does a wonderful job at laying just enough resin down in the cloth and taking up the excess. It'll squeeze the excess out to the side. After that, you put another piece, well, you put your piece of balsa wood on top, put another piece of wax paper over the top, and then a heavy piece of glass or something on the top side. And when it's done, it will peel off of that wax paper, and you have a pre-glassed piece. So what do you do with leftover epoxy? Well, you add either some micro balloons to it and use it as a filler, or you put some milled glass fibers in there to use it as a structural filler. Anyway, just a little tip. Alright, now we're down to painting the landing gear well. This is not totally finished. I still need to make I'm going to make a metal aluminum plate that goes in here that will protect the insides from the heat of the engine, because that's about where the tailpipe of the engine sits. So I want to put a heat deflector on there to keep it away from my wiring. And we've got the main gear painted, so it's ready to go in. I have since wired the airplane for lights. I don't know if you can see it right over there, right off my finger. That's a wing with lights sticking out of the wingtip. I have, you see that green thing sitting there? That's a connector, so when you shove the wing on there, the very two inner ones are for the lights. Then you got positive and negative for the servos, and then I've used 3 pins on each side for servos. Right now they are in the wing. The servo leads are in the wing, but they're not being used. They're there in case down the road sometime, if I want to convert this to lead and trail edge flaps, I can do that, and the wiring will already be in place. Alright, to this point I have the bottom painted, and I've started some weathering on it. I'm doing the bottom, doing the painting, doing the decals so that I can drop the landing gear, roll it over, and then do the top. So I'm going to be doing some weathering like this with an airbrush, a little dual action airbrush. I've already started some weathering here. You can see where it looks a bit scuffed up. I kind of like a used look on my airplanes. I don't know about y'all, but it just makes them look more believable, and it helps cover up my mistakes. Not the greatest at weathering techniques, but this is starting to look pretty good. Okay, got the landing gear down. Got the nose on it. Got the vertical fin on there. Bolt in an engine and glue on a canopy, and I could go fly it. But I still have more painting to do. Now, I've done something here with a Sharpie. I've actually gone around the panel lines and then sanded it so that the Sharpie just goes into the line itself. I'm hoping this shows through the paint a little bit. It might not, but you know, this is kind of an experiment. What I am using here to mask off is 3M frisket paper. It's kind of a vinyl sheet with an adhesive on the back that it's very friendly to paint. It won't peel your paint from underneath. To get it to contour around some of these areas, I use a heat gun on kind of a low setting. The reason why I've done this is because you can see the gray area here that didn't quite work right, and I didn't quite hit this correctly. So this is some touch-up work in this area too. So I'll be touching up this area, and then we'll keep going. I've already done some weathering, panel line outlining, and I'm going to make this thing look like an old war horse. When I was taxiing out, I noticed that the nose wheel was working opposite of the rudder. So what do? You reverse it, right? Not a good idea. The second this thing left the ground, I knew I had a problem. It was way out of trim. It wanted to go full nose down and roll to the left. I should have taken more time doing a pre-flight on this, but people wanted me to fly it, and I got into a rush. Now this thing's picking up some serious speed. I'm starting to regret putting a bigger engine in it. I also added more fuel tanks too to accommodate the larger engine. This airplane is not flying like it did before. It's very sluggish in the pitch and way too sensitive in the roll. It's everything I can do just to keep it running straight. That and that camouflage is blending into the sky really bad. If I can get this thing down, it'll be a miracle. Right now, I'm thinking I'm just going to burn off as much fuel as I can. And now I'm starting to regret putting more fuel on board, just to get it light enough to where I can bring it in and hopefully land it. I'm also getting bumped. It's not inputs that I'm giving it. So I may need to relocate some of the little satellite receivers that are on there. I think I can taste my underwear. I am definitely putting a gyro on this. Right now I'm flying it without a gyro. At this point, I want to thank Mr. Unexpected. Go check out his YouTube channel for taking these videos, and his dad Evan. Thank you very much. I cannot tape or video this and fly at the same time.
You had about
Say what?
6 minutes. 6 minutes? 10 seconds.
Okay, a little over 6 minutes in. I figure I burned up enough fuel. I'm shaking like a leaf. It's time to see if I can get it on the ground in one piece. Okay, I've dropped the landing gear hoping that it'll slow down, but yeah, it's not happening. It's coming in like a rocket. Come on, Grant, keep the wings level, keep the nose up, try to get the airspeed bled off. I'm not going around. This is make or break. Oh, crap. Boy, that was scary. But it's down. It's in one piece. There really wasn't much damage. That landing gear, the right side, popped right back into place. I guess it's not made to go drifting. Okay, this F16 is going to have some major changes. It's going to get a gyro. I need to get a servo reverser for either the rudder or the nose wheel, so we can fix that problem. I need to check my dual rates. I need to check the exponential. I need to do a lot of things before this plane flies again. But it's very repairable. It will fly again. It used to fly wonderfully. I'm going to ask you, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And thank you very much for watching.